And welcome back to the week of Who Would Win. From Liam T, we have the question of who wins in the fight. Another cosmic one. Azathoth from Cthulhu and Lovecraftian lore. Well, Lovecraftian lore. A lot of people just associate with Cthulhu, which is still Lovecraft. And the Crimson King from the Stephen King universe. I've done the Crimson King and Azathoth on a couple of occasions. The problem whenever we do cosmic on a scale like this is because they're both works of fiction that just are trying to sell the idea of just how insanely outclassed we are. Like the level of scaling that like Stephen King did for the Crimson King and that Lovecraft did for Azathoth is kind of ridiculous. Both these guys get to at minimum a hyper to outerversal to boundless to metaversal. It is insane. And the problem beyond that is in terms of powers and abilities, these guys are pretty much can do whatever the other can in theory. So it all comes down to scaling at any exploitable weaknesses that can be brought up for either of these two. And that, when I was looking at the scaling, is where things got a little bit more interesting. Because of the two of them, the Crimson King's the only one who's actually ever had, I don't know if we can call it an exploitable weakness, but who has ever actually lost, who has actually gotten weaker over time. It was theorized Nolan's pistols could in fact kill him, though that's never actually proven. But the fact is, his own paranoia and unstable mindset actually is what did him in the end. Beyond that, he still is the only individual stronger than him is God himself, the de facto creator of the universe. And unlike that, I lost track. My heater's on the fridge, so it turned on and off, so it just distracted me for a second. My apologies. So the fact that he did end up getting weaker does give him a hindrance. However, he's able to affect essentially a metaversal structure in the Dark Tower, which has an infinite dimensional inner sanctum and is capable of viewing it as basically capable of viewing it as essentially fiction itself. That's like narrative level. That's a meta level of power. Azathoth doesn't scale quite to that, but he does scale to boundless. And boundless is like kind of the highest tier you can kind of go in many ways. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are levels beyond balance, like the level of like power scaling levels. Hold on, let's just get to this real quick here. Power scaling levels. Scaling levels. Cause every once in a while I gotta refresh myself on this because it does get difficult to kind of keep up with some of this. Usually, the one I can normally keep track of is okay, possible keyword. Can I get like an actual? There we go. Systems, tiering system. Okay. Oh wait, height. What? The macroverse refers to hypoversal. What the hell? Human athlete, superhuman, urban. Okay, we're starting to get to planetary, cosmic. Okay, here we go. Universal, infinite, universal characters or objects capable of significantly affecting or destroying beings of cosmos structures with magnitudes, durability spanning infinite. God, stupid ads. Where did you go? There we go. Spanning three-dimensional space commonly referred to. Okay, and then you got multiversal, multiple universes, extra-dimensional. The macro level is reserved for characters or objects whose attack potency is quantified within the range of spanning from abilities to destroy 5 or 6-dimensional objects, rising massively to reach. Okay, so then you get hyperversal, which is high hyperversal. Basically destroying not just dimensions or universes, but also the dimensional constructs around those universes. A low archetypal level, okay, that's different. Objects capable of this. Okay, so archetypical, transcendent, low transcendent, high transcendent. I not what is some of these words I'm not looking at? These are words I'm not even familiar with. And yeah, okay. So so I'm gonna go tell you right now. Do not go to the tiering system power scaling website, um, fandom, because that is not because unfortunately the labeling for that is all over. But point being, Boundless is one of the highest tiering systems you can reach. I know that. Because essentially what it means is there is no limitation to what your actual powers are or to where your actual powers go. Now, I don't know if Metaversal does scale beyond or scale higher than that. I don't know for a fact if I don't know if that's the case here. But the fact that the Crimson King has been defeated, more or less, whereas Azathoth is not, is, I think, telling in this case that I think the Crimson King loses in this fight. Mind you, he does, again, these guys more or less have all the same abilities as the other, like reality warping up the yin yang, all that. I believe the Crimson King has like weather manipulation as well, but if you have reality warping, you pretty much have that too. So, now I know I'm probably gonna get someone who says like the Crimson King would make mincemeat of Azathoth and all that. I was like, okay, fine, if you think that, that's fine. Just back again. I always got to reiterate this. If you've actually got a point to make, if you actually think someone wins or loses, actually back up the statement, please. I hate people who just say, "Nah, they'd win. Nah, you're wrong." Like, okay, why? Please tell me why. But again, the whole metafiction narrative thing, I will admit, uh, is an interesting argument against Azathoth. It is an argument against Azathoth, I would feel, but I don't know how good of an argument it is when the Crimson King's power has waned, in the later parts of his story. So I don't know. I leave it to you. What do you think? I'm gonna lean towards Azathoth personally. But I can still see the argument for the Crimson King. I'm not going to argue really that strongly against anyone who thinks the Crimson King will win. This is the problem when you get to beings of this level. Is that it's in any given day, one of them could win. And this is probably one of the reasons, also due to popularity, that Death Battle probably doesn't do a lot of fights on this level. Because, A, the level of interesting is kind of taken out of the equation. I mean, I think the highest tiering level we ever got with fights is, I'm trying to think here, what is the highest tier level Death Battle ever did with fights? I mean, Segata and Chuck Norris is a comic one, but we're talking about legitimately here. I would say it was probably Galactus versus Unicron. I think. I want to say it was Galactus versus Unicron might have been the highest scaled one they've done to date. Oh, you know what? No. Simone might have, I think, went higher than that. I think Simone versus Kyle went high. In fact, that went like multiple dimensions of scale. Yeah, I think it was Simone and Kyle was the highest they ever really scaled, even beyond like the Archie Sonic one. And Archie Sonic does have some super high scaling too. I think it was Simone. That's the highest they've ever gone with like scaling. So it was either that or Galactus and Unicron. I mean, those are among the highest ones I've done. And luckily, the characters have enough uniqueness to them that neither fight was really that boring. However, probably would never see. First off, you're probably never going to see any Lovecraft characters on Death Battle. At best, they do Cthulhu because Cthulhu is the most popular and well-known Lovecraftian character. But yeah, you're probably never going to see anyone because all the scaling on that is just nuts, and it's up for interpretation in a lot of it. I mean, some of it's self-explanatory, but other parts of it is up for interpretation. The Crimson King, you're probably never going to see the Crimson King on Death Battle. You might see Pennywise. In fact, I'd almost say that's a guarantee you'd eventually see Pennywise on Death Battle. But apart from that, I don't think you're going to see Carrie on Death Valley. You're not going to see Christine or the Langoliers or the Tommyknockers. I don't think you're going to see any of them, or Cujo. You're not going to see any of them on Death Battle. Pennywise, again, because of popularity and because there's a lot of information out there for an actual fight you could do, that one I think you could do on Death Battle. But unfortunately, these super cosmic, Eldritch type characters, you're almost never going to see in Death Battle because it's just that's a lose-lose scenario in terms of the fandom. You're going to get people who are like, yeah, and then people are like, no, like that. You want to talk about a fandom that would just crucify you in the comments for getting something they think is wrong. Oh man. And same with Stephen King. I've noticed Stephen King fans definitely get not super heated, but they definitely get actually about things. So yeah, I mean, again, Cthulhu and Pennywise. Hell, have Cthulhu fight Pennywise. That would actually be kind of fun. But Cthulhu and Pennywise might be the only two you might ever see. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to lean towards Azathoth. He has no confirmed weaknesses. He is the highest tiering in terms of scaling I could find is Boundless. It's therefore he does have a stability advantage over the Crimson King, at least. Anywho, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I got Azathoth. Who do you got? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, I'll see you next time.